The first time he called me the little husband right to my face, my wife just giggled, covering her mouth with her manicured hand like a schoolgirl. We were at the most expensive steakhouse in the city, a place where a single bottle of wine cost more than my first car, and I was paying for everything. Across the table, Mark, her so-called personal trainer, winked at me, his bicep flexing as he cut into his filet mignon. "Don't worry, buddy," he said, his voice loud enough for the next table to hear. "I'm keeping Victoria in great shape for you. You should be thanking me." I looked at Victoria, my wife of 7 years, expecting her to defend me, to tell him he was crossing a line. Instead, she touched his arm, her eyes shining with admiration. "Oh, stop it, Mark," she said, her voice dripping with a playfulness she hadn't used with me in over a decade. "Owen knows you're just joking. Besides, he's happy just to pay the bill, aren't you, sweetie?" I gripped my fork until my knuckles turned white, but I forced a smile. "Of course," I said, my voice steady. "I'm just happy to be here." That was the lie I told them. The truth? I was counting the seconds until I destroyed them both. My name is Owen, and I'm 42 years old. If you looked at me, you'd see a plain man. I drive a 5-year-old sedan, wear off-the-rack suits, and work as a consultant for a logistics firm. That's what I tell people. Anyway, that's what I told Victoria when we met 10 years ago. Back then, it was true. I was just a mid-level manager grinding out 60-hour weeks. But things change. People change. Fortunes change. Victoria, however, never cared about the details of my work, only that the direct deposits hit our joint account on the 1st and 15th of every month. She was beautiful, vibrant, and, as I was slowly realizing, completely hollow. We lived in a nice suburban home, took 2 vacations a year, and on the surface, we were the perfect couple. But underneath, the rot had been spreading for years. It started with small things, as these things always do. A password change on her phone here, a late night at the gym there. She started buying new lingerie that I never saw her wear. She started criticizing my clothes, my hair, my quiet nature. "Why can't you be more exciting, Owen?" she'd ask, scrolling through Instagram while we ate dinner in silence. "Look at Mark. He's always doing something adventurous. Hiking, skydiving. You just want to sit and read." I would apologize, promising to try harder, while she rolled her eyes. I felt small. I felt inadequate. And that's exactly how they wanted me to feel. The dynamic with Mark didn't happen overnight. He started as just a trainer she hired to tone up for summer. Then he was joining us for drinks. Then barbecues. Then, suddenly, he was a fixture in our lives. He'd come over to watch the game, eating my food, drinking my beer, and making subtle digs at me the whole time. "You wouldn't understand this play. Owen, you've never played a real sport," he'd say. And Victoria would laugh. That laugh haunted me. It was the sound of my marriage dissolving. One specific Saturday stands out. We were hosting a barbecue for Victoria's birthday. Our backyard was full of her friends, mostly vapid social climbers and their boar husbands. Mark was manning the grill, acting like the host. I was in the kitchen, prepping salads. I walked out with a tray of coleslaw, just in time to hear Mark holding court. "Yeah, Owen's a good guy," Mark was saying to a group of women, including my wife. "But let's be honest, he's a bit vanilla. You know what I mean?" He winked. "Victoria here needs someone with a bit more spice." The women giggled. Victoria swatted his arm, but she was beaming. "Mark, behave," she teased. "I'm just saying," he continued, flipping a burger with flair. "Some men are built for adventure, and some are built for paying the mortgage." The laughter that followed was like a physical blow. I stood there, tray in hand, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. I wanted to drop the tray. I wanted to punch him, but I didn't. I took a deep breath, put on my nice guy mask, and walked over. "Here's the coleslaw," I said, my voice flat. "Thanks. Buddy," Mark said, taking the tray without looking at me. "Grab me another beer while you're at it, will you?" I went to get the beer. I felt like a servant in my own home, a cuckold in waiting. But I was also a man who built systems for a living. I optimized supply chains for global conglomerates. I knew that you didn't strike until you had all the data, and the data was piling up. I started tracking everything. The miles on her car, the timestamps on her texts, the credit card bills. I noticed patterns. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she had late yoga. But the GPS on her car, which I had subtly installed weeks ago, showed she wasn't at the yoga studio. She was at a sleek apartment complex downtown, Mark's apartment complex. She'd stay there for exactly 2 hours, then drive home, showering immediately upon arrival. I analyzed our finances. I saw withdrawals from our joint savings that were just under the limit that would trigger a notification. 400 here, 300 there. Cash. Untraceable. Or so she thought. You're so quiet tonight. Owen, Mark said at the steakhouse, snapping me back to the present. He took a sip of the vintage Cabernet I had ordered. Cat got your tongue? Or just thinking about spreadsheets? Victoria laughed, a high, tinkling sound that grated on my nerves. Oh, leave him alone, Mark. Owen lives in his own little world. He's probably calculating the tip right now. Generous of him, Mark sneered. Considering I'm doing all the heavy lifting. They locked eyes then, a shared secret passing between them. It was a look of pure contempt for me and pure lust for each other. It was the kind of look that would have broken a weaker man. They wanted me to be the provider, the fool who paid for their pleasure. They got off on it. I could see it in the way Mark sprawled in his chair, taking up space, asserting his dominance. I could see it in the way Victoria preened for him, ignoring her husband to fawn over her lover. I took a slow sip of my water. Actually, I said, I was expecting it to be higher. Inflation and all. Mark snorted. Inflation? Please. You probably have a coupon in your pocket. Something like that, I said. High risk, high reward. But you have to know when to exit the market. They didn't get it. They never would. Not until it was too late. If you're enjoying this story of betrayal and calculated revenge, please hit that subscribe button. It helps the channel grow and lets me bring you more stories of justice served cold. And tell me in the comments, what's the biggest red flag you've ever ignored in a relationship? Drop a like if you think Mark is about to get what's coming to him. The discovery hadn't been a single moment, but a slow accumulation of evidence. The girls' night photos where I recognized the background not as a local bar, but the lobby of the St. Regis. The credit card charges for spa treatments that matched the exact hourly rates of a luxury hotel suite. But the smoking gun came 3 weeks ago. It was a Tuesday. I was supposed to be at a conference in Chicago, but my flight got canceled. I decided to drive home and surprise Victoria. Maybe take her to a real dinner. Try to reconnect. I pulled into the driveway at 7 p.m. Her car was there. The house was dark. I unlocked the front door quietly. I heard music coming from the living room, soft jazz, and giggling. I crept down the hallway. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. I peeked around the corner. They were there, on the rug, the expensive Persian rug my grandmother had given us. There were wine glasses, empty bottles, and them. I couldn't move. I watched for what felt like an hour, though it was probably only seconds. I saw the way she looked at him, the way she touched him. It wasn't just physical. It was intimate. She was looking at him the way she used to look at me, before I became boring, before I became just a paycheck. I backed away. I didn't burst in. I didn't scream. I went back to my car, drove to a motel, and checked in. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on the lumpy mattress, staring at the ceiling. The images from the living room played on a loop in my mind. The betrayal burned like acid. But amidst the pain, a plan began to form. A cold, hard, mathematical plan. I remembered the iPad. Victoria often left it on the kitchen counter. The next day, when I returned from Chicago, I waited until she was in the shower. I checked the iPad. The messages were worse than I imagined. Message from Mark. Last night was insane. Your husband has no idea what you're capable of. Does he? He's such a bore. Can't believe you're still with him. Victoria's reply. He's just an ATM, babe. As soon as his bonus hits next month, I'm filing for divorce. I'll take him for half, plus alimony. We'll be set. Just imagine, Us in that house, with his money, Mark, and me in his bed permanently. I liked the sound of that. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All the years of hard work, of loyalty, of love, reduced to this. I was an ATM, a resource to be drained and discarded. I went to the bathroom and threw up. I looked at myself in the mirror, pale and shaking. I looked like a victim, a cuckold, a fool. But then the shift happened. The nausea faded, replaced by the clarity of the algorithm. They thought I was weak. They thought I was stupid. They had no idea who I really was. You see, 3 years ago, that consulting gig turned into something else. I had developed a predictive algorithm for shipping logistics, specifically for optimizing last-mile delivery in urban centers, that a major tech giant decided they couldn't live without. They bought my company, my shell company, for a sum that would make Mark's head spin. $50 million. But I never told Victoria. I kept my old car. I kept our modest house. I wanted to surprise her for our 10th anniversary. I wanted to know she loved me for me, not my bank account. I wanted to protect us from the sudden wealth syndrome that destroys so many lottery winners. I was waiting for the right moment. Well, the right moment had just arrived, but not the one I had planned. I spent the next 2 weeks meeting with lawyers, not divorce lawyers, corporate lawyers. Sharks, men in $3,000 suits who smell blood in the water. You want to do what? My lead counsel, Mr. Henderson, asked, raising an eyebrow. I want to buy the debt, I said, sliding a folder across his mahogany desk. Mark typically operates his gym business through leveraged loans. He's overextended. I want to be the one holding the leash. Henderson opened the folder. He scanned the documents I had compiled. This is aggressive, Owen. You're buying his commercial loans, his equipment leases, even his personal credit card debt. Everything, I said. If he owes a dime to anyone, I want to be the creditor. And your wife, I want a forensic audit of her spending, I said. And I want you to look into the boutique design firm she works for. I have a suspicion they're operating on thin margins. And I happen to know their biggest client is a subsidiary of the company that bought my algorithm. Henderson smiled. It was a shark smile. I see. You don't just want a divorce. You want a demolition. I want optimization. I corrected. I'm removing the inefficiencies. Back at the dinner, the check arrived. The waiter placed the black leather folder in front of me. Let me get that, champ, Mark said, reaching for it with mock chivalry, knowing full well he couldn't afford a single appetizer here. Oh, wait. I forgot my wallet in my other gym bag. Oops. Victoria swatted his arm playfully. You're terrible. Owen doesn't mind. Do you, honey? Not at all, I said. I opened the folder. $600. Chump change. I placed my black Amex, the Centurion card I usually kept hidden in a secret compartment of my wallet, on the tray. Mark's eyes widened slightly when he saw the card. He might be a meathead, but even he knew what a black card meant. It wasn't something a mid-level manager had. It was titanium. It was heavy. It smelled of power. Whoa, he said, his smirk faltering for a fraction of a second. Upgrade your card. Owen? Something like that, I said, my voice cool. Perk of the job. The waiter took the card with a bow, treating it like a holy relic. Right away, sir. Since when does a logistics consultant get a Centurion card? Mark asked, a hint of suspicion creeping into his voice. You'd be surprised what logistics pays these days, I said, especially when you own the supply chain. Victoria laughed nervously. Owen's always making jokes. He probably just got a good offer in the mail. I didn't correct her. I just smiled. The confrontation happened 2 days later. I decided to accelerate the timeline. I came home early, always a classic move, but I didn't catch them in bed. That would have been too easy. No, I walked into the living room to find them sitting on my couch, looking at real estate brochures. Expensive real estate brochures for mansions on the lake. They jumped apart like guilty teenagers. Mark spilled his protein shake on my rug. Owen, Victoria shrieked, pulling her robe tighter. What are you doing home? It's 2 p.m. I live here, I said calmly, placing my briefcase on the table. Though from the looks of it, you're planning on moving. Without me. Mark stood up. puffing out his chest, trying to intimidate me in my own home. He was wearing one of my T-shirts. It was tight on him, stretching over his muscles. It was a small indignity, but it fueled my fire. We were just talking, man. Victoria was showing me some houses she likes. For inspiration. Inspiration, I repeated. Is that what you call it? Or were you picking out the mansion you were going to buy with my alimony payments? Using my money to fund your little love nest? The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria's face went white. Mark's jaw clenched. I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered, trying to regain control. Don't you? I asked, stepping closer. I saw the messages, Victoria. The iPad. He's just an ATM. As soon as the bonus hits. Did I miss anything? Oh, right. Mark in my bed, permanently. She looked at Mark, then back at me. Her mask of innocence crumbled, replaced by the ugly sneer I'd seen at the restaurant. So what? She spat. So, fine. It's over, Owen. I'm leaving you. I'm bored. I want a real man, not a calculator. Mark makes me feel alive. You make me feel like I'm in a coma. Mark stepped forward, sensing blood. You heard the lady, Owen. It's over. And yeah, we're taking you for everything you've got. You're going to pay for the lifestyle she deserves. And I'm going to be the one enjoying it with her. We're going to take the house, the savings, the 401k, everything. He poked me in the chest. A hard, disrespectful jab. Get used to it, little man. You're yesterday's news. I looked down at his finger, then up at his face. I didn't flinch. I didn't shout. I just smiled. A cold, predatory smile that made Mark take a half step back. You think you won, I said softly. You think you found a golden goose. But you didn't check the expiration date. And you definitely didn't check who owns the goose. What are you talking about? Mark demanded, though his voice wavered. Get out, I said. Both of you. Now. This is my house. Victoria screamed. I'm not going anywhere until I speak to my lawyer. You can't just kick me out. Call him, I said. Call him right now. Tell him to look up who owns the failing gym Mark works at. Tell him to look up who bought the mortgage on this house yesterday. And tell him to check the prenuptial agreement you signed 10 years ago. The one with the rigorous infidelity clause that voids all spousal support in the event of adultery. We didn't sign a prenup. She cried. We had nothing. You were a nobody. I did, I said. And you signed it because you thought it was just standard paperwork for the mortgage refinance 2 years ago. Remember that stack of papers? You never read anything, Victoria. You just signed where the sticky note is. This was a partial bluff. The document existed, buried in a stack of refinancing papers, but its enforceability was debatable. But they didn't know that. Fear is a powerful weapon. Get out, I repeated, or I call the police and have you removed for trespassing on my property. And Mark? I wouldn't go back to the gym if I were you. The locks have been changed. They left, but not without threats. You'll hear from my lawyer. Victoria screamed from the driveway. I'm taking half. I know you have money hidden somewhere. Oh! She had no idea. The revenge plan was simple, elegant, and total. I didn't just want to divorce her. That wasn't enough. They had humiliated me. They'd mocked me in public, laughed at me in private, and planned to bleed me dry. I needed to destroy them. I needed to take everything they valued, their status, their money, their ego, and grind it into dust. Step 1, the lover. Mark didn't just work at the gym. He was a minority partner, a silent partner. He claimed, I did some digging. The gym was failing. It was drowning in debt. The majority owner was desperate to sell. So, through a holding company called Nemesis Ventures, I bought the debt. Then I called a loan. Immediate repayment or foreclosure. I also bought the building his apartment was in. I was his landlord, his creditor, and his executioner. Step 2, the wife. Victoria worked part-time as an interior designer for a boutique firm, a firm that relied heavily on corporate contracts that my logistics partners controlled. A few phone calls, a few suggestions about conflict of interest and unprofessional conduct, and those contracts were under review. I also froze our joint accounts. Not legally, but effectively. I transferred the funds to a secured escrow account pending the divorce litigation. She tried to use her card at a gas station an hour after leaving the house. Declined. Step 3, the social circle. The people who laughed at me at those dinners. I knew their secrets too. Small towns, small circles. Everyone talks. I started leaking information. Not directly, of course. Just whispers. Rumors. Did you hear about Mark? Borrowing money from clients? Did you hear about Victoria? Sleeping with the help? I heard Owen is actually the one with the money, and he cut them off. The execution began 2 weeks later. I was sitting in my lawyer's office, a real shark, $800 an hour, when Victoria and her court-appointed attorney walked in. She looked tired. The glow was gone. Her designer clothes looked a bit rumpled. Mark wasn't with her. My client demands full financial disclosure. Her lawyer, a sweaty man named Mr. Pumble, began puffing out his chest. We know Mr. Owen is hiding assets. We demand access to the hidden accounts. My client has nothing to hide, my lawyer said smoothly, sliding a thick binder across the table. Here are his tax returns for the last 7 years. His salary as a logistics consultant is modest, around $85,000 a year. They flipped through the pages. Confused, they were looking for millions. They found middle class. But the black card, Victoria blurted out. He has a black Amex. He paid a $600 bill like it was nothing. He bought the gym's debt. Authorized user, I lied seamlessly. Corporate expense account. Strict limits. If I use it for personal reasons, it comes out of my paycheck. And as for the gym debt, my company buys distressed assets. I just recommended it. Her face fell. But you said... I said a lot of things. I interrupted. Just like you said you loved me. Just like you said till death do us part. We want the house. Her lawyer pivoted. The marital home. Foreclosed, mine answered. Mr. Owen didn't pay the mortgage this month. Or last month. The bank seized it this morning. He's renting an apartment. A studio. He is, for all intents and purposes, insolvent. This was the beauty of it. I had let the house go. I bought the mortgage note through my company, then foreclosed on myself. To the world, I was broke. A loser. Just like they said. He's destitute, my lawyer emphasized. In fact, given that Ms. Victoria has a steady income, we might be seeking spousal support from her. Victoria looked like she was going to faint. This is a joke. This has to be a joke. The only joke here is your boyfriend's business, I said. I heard the gym is closing down today. Locks changed. Equipment seized. I believe there's a sheriff's deputy there right now doing an inventory. Her eyes widened. She grabbed her phone, frantically dialing. Mark? Mark, pick up. She put on speaker. What? Mark's voice barked, sounding panicked. I can't talk, Vic. The feds are here. IRS. Something about tax fraud and asset seizure. They're taking everything. My car, my equipment. They even took my watch. Mark, Owen is broke. She screamed. He has nothing. The house is gone. We're not getting anything. I don't care about your stupid husband. Mark yelled. I'm going to jail Victoria. Don't call me again. You dragged me into this high-life fantasy, and now I'm paying for it. Click. The silence in the room was absolute. It hung heavy and thick, like the air before a storm. Victoria slowly lowered the phone. She looked at her lawyer, who was packing up his briefcase, realizing there was no money to be made here. Then she looked at me, and for the first time in years, she really saw me. Not the ATM, not the boring husband, but the man who had just dismantled her entire life without raising his voice. The man who held all the cards. Owen, she whispered, her voice trembling. What did you do? I optimized, I said, standing up and buttoning my cheap suit jacket. I removed the inefficiencies from my life. You were an inefficiency, Victoria. An expensive, disloyal inefficiency. But where will I go? She asked, tears spilling over. I have no money, no home. My friends won't talk to me. I hear Mark has a lovely one-bedroom basement apartment. I said, oh, wait, Probably not anymore. Maybe ask your mother? Oh, that's right. You told her I was abusive, so she'd side with you. I don't think she'll take you in when she finds out you lied. I sent her the photos, by the way, and the texts. Her face crumbled. You sent her everything, I said. She was quite disappointed. She reached out to grab my hand, her fingers desperate. Owen, please. I love you. It was a mistake. We can fix this. We can start over. I'll sign a post-nup. I'll do anything. I looked at her hand on my arm. The same hand that had touched Mark so lovingly at dinner. The same hand that had texted those vile things about me. I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just release. You're right, I said. I am starting over. I pulled my arm away, turned, and walked out of the office. The aftermath was brutal for them. Victoria ended up moving into a motel on the outskirts of town. She lost her job when the firm downsized. Last I heard, she was working waitstaff at a diner, serving the same kind of people she used to mock. She tried to contact me a few times, sappy emails, late-night calls, but I changed my number. Mark went to prison for 2 years for tax evasion and fraud. Turns out the tip I sent the IRS, along with some highlighted discrepancies in his books, was quite helpful. When he gets out, he'll have nothing. No gym, no car, no reputation. As for me, I walked out of that office and got into a waiting Uber. It took me to a private airfield. My Gulfstream G650 was waiting. I flew to my villa in Tuscany, where I spent the next month drinking real wine and eating food that didn't taste like betrayal. I eventually sold the consulting shell company publicly, revealing my name. The headlines were everywhere. Secret tech tycoon revealed. The $50 million man logistics genius sells algorithm for record sum. I sent a copy of the magazine to the diner where Victoria worked. No note, just a magazine, open to the page with my photo. I heard she fainted in the middle of the lunch rush. Dropped a tray of burgers right on a customer's lap. Twist ending? Maybe, but the real twist wasn't the money. The real twist was that I was happy. I met someone new in Italy. Elena. She's an architect. She has her own money, her own life, and her own passion. She loves me because I make her laugh, because I listen, because I'm loyal. And last week, we went to dinner. A nice place. The waiter brought the check. Let me get that, I said. Elena smiled and put her hand over mine. Split it? I smiled back. Deal. If you loved seeing this gold digger get exactly what she deserved, smash that like button. It helps the algorithm find more people who need to see justice served. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a Payback story. And let me know in the comments, would you have sent the magazine or just ghosted her completely? Thanks for watching.